It's a cultural thing. It's a generational thing. It's all of that as well. But how then do we lock arms and lean into each other to increase that value? Because our perceived value creates additional opportunities. So our perceived value still has to be there in order to go play the next level of the game, right?
I actually probably missed some opportunities because I didn't understand as well perceived value, right? I positioned stuff business-wise. I didn't always position stuff like image-wise. And I also grew up in New England where if you had it, you didn't show it.
Hey community, welcome back to part 2 of Empowering Communities with Bo, Emerick, and Daniel at the Color of Money podcast. Hey, last week we had this great episode. It was so good. We just had to run another session. We went so deep into empowerment into the community. We're coming back here right now to talk about part 2 of Empowering Communities at the Color of Money podcast. We're ready to go. We hope you're ready to go. Here we go live. Let's take it on, guys.
Now, Bo, there's a few things that I am gaining from this. I mean, I think from what we've gone through and what I know about you, I feel like that there's a common theme of helping other people and then you win. This isn't about I'm gonna just go do all of these things and this is the Bo show. It's about how can I create value for people and help them achieve what they want to achieve. And in doing that, in return, you're going to win at the end of the day, whether it be through the investment piece or the financial backing piece or taking on projects or whatever the thing is. I think that's a unique thing for people to think about because we don't often think through other people. We always think about ourselves first and how can we win first before we think about how we can put others first. I think that's powerful.
It's a really interesting point, Daniel. I feel like as I go along my career journey, and I think like I'm actually interested. I'm gonna answer the question, but I want to hear Emerick's thought on this because I think there's some people in my life that I've seen come out the gate and they just came out the gate with I'm gonna inspire others, right? I'm gonna build others. And Emerick's one of those people that's always like inspiring me in that way. Mm-hmm. I was like a little poor ass mixed kid. Chubby kid from the wrong side of the tracks. Like I wanted to prove something. I wanted to prove that I was valuable. And my life has been a series of learnings that proving I was valuable was kind of a pointless exercise. That the real exercise was what value can you unlock in others? Like how do you help other people unlock their value? And that started out pretty early in like sports as a teammate. Like what impact could you have on the team? Because your team's got to win. I can't just put up numbers. Like the whole team's got to win. And then it got into business, and this question of like this. I have limited skill. There's only so many things I'm good at. How do I surround myself with people that are better than me at these different things? And that's really what. Yeah. And how do we change that narrative, right? Because I grew up. And I learned so much, and I do every day. Like, man, look at what Daniel's done and what he's accomplished, and seeing how he's mixed in, like the things that are important, like what he's done with this, what you've done with your philanthropy, and tying that back into your experience. And those things are extremely powerful. What could I learn from them? And how could the platform that they've created be a stepping stone to my success? And so I've been in this process over the last few years of how do I remake myself and my organization so that it's not about proving that we can do it. It's that we become a platform and a catalyst and a stepping stone for others to do with the hope that those others do way more than we ever could have done ourselves. And they do that many times over because there's many of them. And that is kind of the quest right now. But I think it comes back to this underlying idea that there's this latent value in human beings. There's this latent value in buildings sometimes and in communities and environments that is underappreciated. And I grew up angry about that. I grew up pissed off that we were overlooked. And I realized, oh, wow, that curse could be a gift if you could unlock it.
You know what, Bo? And you said that, and you want to ask this question. Now, I'm straight as an arrow. there's two different sides to look at that. Sometimes we judge our insides by other people's outsides. We hear that. And so we look at it two different ways. And for me, it's always been about inspiring other people, right? And you said you had this chip on your shoulder and you had to prove people wrong. There's no right or wrong way. Because sometimes, I'm just being transparent. I said, well, maybe I should have done something different because then I would have Bo's balance sheet. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, did I really work this a different angle that I could have worked this? Wasn't that I couldn't, I just chose to work this angle. And that's the angle that I work, and you work the angle that you work. Here's the deal though, right? At the end of your day, you're at the beginning of your day. And so when I look at us, like me, we probably have almost a 14-year difference. I'm 58, you're 44, 45, right? So there's a 13-year difference. So my angle was an angle that I started later in life. Your angle is the angle that you started early in life. So when we take a look at that, and you're at 45, now you're looking at this paradigm shift at the way that you look at things. You have a bigger pool of personal, financial, and relationship resources that I may not have, that can ultimately have this tremendous effect on our community a different way, and on a larger scale. The only question is how is that going to be executed?
Yeah, and how do we change that narrative, right? Because I
Right.
grew up and I learned so much, and I do every day. Like, man, look at what Daniel's done and what he's accomplished, and seeing how he's mixed in like the things that are important, like what he's done with this, what you've done with your philanthropy and tying that back into your experience, and those things are extremely powerful um, and inspiring. I think that I have this, and I might not articulate it correctly, but I believe that there's an opportunity. I believe you guys are in many ways leading the way uh, with this podcast and with some stuff you've been doing from your various perspectives, along with Julia. What if we stopped just idolizing and learning from each other? We started leveraging each other's capabilities. What if we started leveraging? So that to me is the next level. The next level is, how do we leverage some of the things that Emerick does that I don't hope. If I try to teach and inspire and build community, can I do it? Yeah. Do I do it at the same way or the same skill set or from the same angle that Emerick? No. So then how do you leverage these unique gifts that different people bring to the table and start pulling ourselves together? Because we started with less resource. If we actually want to compete, we have to think about collaboration at a greater level than others. And we currently do it at a lower level than others. I started to see how these communities work, especially in development. Development's about collaboration. Developers don't know how to build a house. They don't know, they're not the finance guys. They're not the bank. They're not the architect, right? They're not the engineer. They're the guys that make it all come together. That's what development is. Development is taking risk, taking calculated risk, and pulling together the community that can execute on something. So how do we take that to even bigger levels so we can operate, so we can execute on bigger things? And so I think part of that is breaking through this narrative, especially as men of color, that we are exceptional. The world's been telling us since we were little that we're exceptional, because statistically we were. Statistically, we were exceptional. And that feels good, to be told you're special, right? To be told you're the one, like, man, he's really doing
Right.
it. That feeds my ego, right?
That doesn't move the big needle, though. That doesn't
But
move
it
the big.
doesn't move the big. It does not move the big needle. Ego is actually in direct conflict with moving the big needle. And quite frankly, the world feeds us that line because it keeps us small. As long as Daniel's not like the rest of them, he's the guy who made it, but there isn't other potential out there. I can dismiss the rest of them.
Right.
But when Daniel is the first of many, he's one of thousands that could be as great as him. then I have an obligation to make sure that we tap into that greatness that's lying latent. Because Daniel or Bo or Emerick, maybe they got an opportunity to show their greatness. There may be other greatness out there that hasn't yet had an opportunity to shine.
And it's interesting that you said that way, because what happens is they put this special person on a pedestal, and the special person lives on the pedestal, and a lot of times the special person sometimes don't come down off their pedestal because they're so busy being on their pedestal. They don't have sometimes a lot of time to come down off their pedestal to help other people, or to just recognize that place that of collaboration where, why don't we just make the pedestal bigger?
Yeah. And it cuts both ways, Emerick, right? It cuts both ways. There's a lot of research, right? A lot of really interesting research. So one is this, this is not research. This is what I'm talking about. Like this idea that this individualistic, like we're all just, you're a phoenix. You rose from the ashes, no mama, no daddy, barefoot, right, walking uphill both ways to school. And somehow you made it, all by yourself. Though nobody tells the story about the teacher that helped you, the grandma that raised you, or whatever. They don't tell about the community that actually made that happen. So that's one piece. The flip side of it is, as oftentimes people of color or coming from a lower income environment, when somebody makes it, they're expected to take everybody else with them. Now you're supposed to get your mama a house. Whereas right, the other guy you're competing against, he didn't have to buy his mama a house. His mama gave him a house.
Right, exactly.
But you're supposed to help your boys who couldn't make it when they're short on cash. They're going to call you. So there's a lot of research that shows a lot of first generation wealth gets destroyed because of the pressures that a community puts on people to pull everybody forward with them. So how do we both move collectively and not be an albatross to one another? Does that make sense? It's a really interesting balance.
But here's the deal. Like when you put in that place, you become and sometimes it consumes you, and you have to be really careful not to fall into this trap. You become the designated representative for the people, right? And they say, well, if you did it, anybody else can do it. And then they ask you, why can't other people do it? And when you give the answer, a lot of people don't want to really hear the answer that you give. And then on the other end of that, we always have to be careful of how we talk about ourselves. And for me, like when I come in environments and people say, if somebody says, and this is no offense anyway, people say people of color, they say minority, I don't use those terms. I say I'm Black. And I say I'm Black because I believe that everybody else in every other category, whether it be minority or color, if there was no Black people in affirmative action, everybody else wouldn't get to ride the train. So I believe that everybody else on that train, when you start having that conversation about identity, I always identify as Black because my struggle, my plight, the things that conversation I've had to have is different than everybody else. Because, and I don't want to harp on this, when you see me as a Black man, people judge me from 100 yards away. And then I'm a threat at 100 yards away. As I get closer, either that threat gets diminished or it gets validated, even in a bow tie. And even when I'm speaking, oh, you sound good, you look good, you smell good, I'm still a Black man. I'm not a minority. I am a Black man, period. And so and subconsciously for us, that's a battle that we fight on a regular and consistent basis, where there's a mixed signal where we're achieving at a certain place in the world. And there's still that question of, you're a Black man. And I took us off track a little bit.
I actually think there's something really interesting there, right? There's something really interesting here, because something I've struggled with that I believe is in the way of a lot of wealth for us is this desire for conspicuous consumption. And I used to get really mad at young brothers who needed to ice themselves out and drive the fanciest car.
I've heard you say that before.
And you've heard me rail on that. And I had to think about it
Let
for
me
a
let me
while.
let
And
me
I
let
said,
me tuck my necklace in really quick.
that's not really fair. That's not really fair. Dan put his chains away. But I was like, that's actually not fair, because we are all, as Black men, fighting the same issue, which is that when people see us, they devalue us just based on looking at us. And I used to think that's just because these brothers are frivolous. And I'm like, nah, they're struggling with the same psychology I am, which is when I walk in a room, people they don't assume that I own the place. They assume that I'm there to clean up, or that how'd he get let in, especially because I ain't dressing as nice. So they're like, who the hell is this dude, right? And so I dealt with that not by saying I want to have the nicest clothes, because I knew that they could still just, I'm only as good as my clothes. I dealt with that by saying I want to own the goddamn building, right? But it's equally as messed up, because we're both struggling for this thing that keeps us going, and all we're trying to do is be enough. And as men, this is the men conversation. I don't know how we got on the men conversation, but like as a man and as a Black, like as a man generally, you're valued for what you produce. You're not valued. Nobody comes and says, "Oh, Emerick, you're just such a beautiful soul. I want to cherish you." That doesn't happen to men. And so then you put race on top of that, and you have people that are out there saying, "Okay, now I gotta somehow fight for my value. I gotta fight for people to see value in me." This isn't a male thing or a race; it's a human thing. All human beings want to be valued, and so I've had to come a long way in my reaction to some of that, because I said, man, I'm really missing the point. These are just a bunch of brothers out here struggling to be valued. But that can get in the way of building wealth, because it costs them a whole hell of a lot of useless money to some European family designers to try and pretend that they're valued. Or if they put that money into something else, they might actually have some real cash value that can't be taken away from
them. Or they could be like Daniel. They could be like Daniel. And Daniel is, I love Daniel for this. Daniel is unapologetically, right, fashionable. And what Daniel says is that if I can't buy 3 of them, I won't buy one. And that's a different conversation when you see that outward appearance of people and you say, oh, they look like this or they look like that. And I believe and Daniel, I want you to talk about that, a little bit, because I mean, when I heard you say that, that made so much more sense to me. You're looking at my Balenciaga or whatever that is shirt. I can buy 3 of these, and by the way, I still have 4 houses. So I didn't get to buy this Balenciaga today. This Balenciaga is a culmination of me scraping and suffering. I shouldn't say scraping and suffering, of me putting together a plan so that I can buy 3 of these. And if I can't buy 3 of these, I won't buy one. I'll just go buy another house.
What Bo said is so. I think the danger in that thought process that we have is we don't even understand it. And so when you think about, I'm wearing chains and I'm driving nice cars and I'm stunting on people, is because I want you to understand from 100 yards away, Emerick.
Right.
Oh, I'm valuable. I'm incredibly valuable. And look at all the things I have and how much money I have to be valuable, to even be on the same thought process or level playing field that other people are on. I remember when I was first an agent, I'm always in 3-piece suits, because I'm going to let you know my value from day one, so you can never write me off by not being professional enough. And being in Colorado, people are going to showings in shorts and flip-flops. But I can never do that, because I'm gonna be that dude that doesn't take this seriously enough and isn't valued enough. And so just thinking back through that, Bo, like that, there's so many things in my life where I'm like, why did you need that? I'm like, because I want you to understand how valuable I am. Like, that is wild. That is absolutely wild. I've never looked at it from that perspective. It's so powerful.
It's really interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot, Daniel. I'm going to take it one more. I may be going way off track here, but take it one step further. So we grow up. I grew up as a kid playing other people's games. I played baseball. I played ice hockey. I played football. I went to school. School to me was a game. I learned how to get good grades. When I was a little punk ass kid from Somerville, that was a matter of survival. If I didn't learn how to play other people's games, I didn't have an opportunity. Well, now I sit here in front of you, mid 40s, right? I have enough resource. I don't have to play somebody else's game. But it's actually the only thing I know how to do. I only know how to create my value based on somebody else's rules. So now, our value is based on some European designer's definition of cool, right? So the only way we know how to determine our value is on somebody else's rules. And that's a trap, because now even when you break free of it, well, I don't actually know. Yeah, sure, I could probably do something totally different if I wanted to. But I'm actually really good at playing somebody else's game, right? I'm good at defining value in the way that society's told me they define value. So not only am I trying to prove my value, I'm trying to prove my value on somebody else's scorecard.
Okay, so with that thought, Bo, right? Let's wrap our brain around this. That's the way that we all are wired to a certain point, because society has conditioned us that we have to play the game. We have to be in the game in order to play the game. In order to be in the game, we have to figure out how to play the game. And then once we play the game long enough to figure out, this is the part that we miss, how to own the game. That's where the magic happens, when we figure out how to own the game. And I'm being transparent, and probably, I'm not sure who's listening to this. In our environment, and I'm being in our environment, in our KW environment, probably my biggest challenge or my biggest deficit has been for me not moving in different directions. I understood how to play the game. I played the game. I built a successful business. And at the end of the day, I'm not willing to play the other part of the game in order to move up the ladder. I believe that my place and my position and my best place for me to serve is probably where I am now, because this is just me speaking, I'm extremely valiant and relevant in my community. And that's what makes a difference to me, because I can never change the other people and the other people and the other people in the other community. I can't change their value. I can't change what they think about me. I can't alter how they perceive me, which Daniel is going through that right now. I can't do that. So how about I play in my community with my group of people, and I elevate what I consider to be my value there, and help that group of people make more money and improve what they believe their value is inside of their space, and ultimately stop playing other people's game. Because even within my market center.
And I think it's really interesting along the way. My view is that it's not really ever, things aren't sort of black or white or one way or the other. I look at it and I look back, and you were asking this question earlier, Daniel. I look back on the journey, right? And I think each of us and everybody who pours their heart into a career, a business, especially something that's entrepreneurial, there's your DNA's in there. Like your DNA's in there, is in it, right? So you can be playing a game, and business is a game. Like you have to understand the context. If you try and be totally against that, you're not going to get anywhere. The question is, to what degree can you put your own spin on it, right? And for me, it was a spin on business, that business doesn't have to be something separate from making an impact. That, business actually can be a direct mechanism for impact, especially given that most of the injustice in our world is driven by unjust economics. And so business could be a vehicle for impact. And so that was my own little spin on it, right? I didn't get into real estate and say I got into real estate and said, hey, it's going to be about making an impact. That was my way to put my own little spin on it. And so I think we each have the opportunity, no matter how inside or outside a system we are, to put our own little spin on that. That's what's happened with Coach Prime. Like, right, he's in the college football. That's the system. He's acting crazy, but he's putting his own spin on it. He's extreme. He was extreme when he was younger and putting his own spin on the system. But he's still in a system. He's working in a system. He's playing a game. He didn't make the rules, right? He might make his own dress code, but he didn't make the rules, right? And so we all have an opportunity, no matter how out there or inside, to put our own spin on things.
Well, how do we increase the value if it's not, and it shouldn't be designer, it shouldn't be through chains and all the other fun stuff. And it's a cultural thing, it's a generational thing, it's all of that as well. But how then do we lock arms and lean into each other to increase that value? Because our perceived value creates additional opportunities. So our perceived value still has to be there in order to go play the next level of the game, right?
Yeah, my point was like, it wasn't, one of my big ahas, Daniel, was like, I had this thing in my head. It actually wasn't like, it actually is a component part. Like, I actually probably missed some opportunities because I didn't understand as well perceived value, right? Back to your point. Like, I positioned stuff business-wise. I didn't always position stuff like image-wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also grew up in New England, where if you had it, you didn't show it. I didn't grow up in Miami. I grew up in New England. New England, the people that got it, they got it for generations, and they don't show it. So I didn't have examples. That was, to me, I learned that early. That's those guys. Oh, they're over there, but that's how they do it. So I think there's this interesting balance of how do you use notoriety, image, people knowing who you are, the platform that creates of a voice. How do you use that to pull people together to actually make tactical change and not just come together and feel happy about coming together, but actually go out? Like I think you were talking about the other day, Daniel, like how do you take that energy and go out and do something? Like go take one thing away, go try, go invest in a property, mess it up. Cause that's what I did. I didn't, it wasn't all perfect. I screwed it up and I screwed it up again. And then I figured it out. Right. And so how do you get people to come together and then go do something?
It's two different things, Bo. You said something and you said tactical. Like I'm a military guy. So tactical, anything you do tactical is a short-term goal. We got to have a strategic conversation. Strategic is a long-term, right? Strategic is long range, tactical is short range. I'm giving you a quick history lesson. That's why a fighter jet, which is tactical, is good for short distance. A bomber jet is strategic and it's for long-term it's for long-range activity. And so in that space of what we're really talking about and adding value, we have to be clear of who's in our tribe, who's on our team, and whose value are we pursuing, or whose value are we attempting to increase, and whose value are we attempting to either validate or improve? Because I believe part of our challenge sometimes we spend too much time working on being valuable to people who don't really give a damn about us. And that's an exercise of futility, because no matter how much we do, are we really going to change what they really value us? If there's a possibility for us to spend more time with more people who we can truly move the needle with on a larger scale from a value perspective, whether it be internal or external, I believe that that would be the best use of our time. And Daniel, you are a prime example of some things that you said to me about the people that are in your space and on your team. That's what you're looking for, those people. And those are the people that are going to add value to your organization. And I believe, Bo, if you take a look at your organization, right, the people who you've attempted to change, and I'm saying this way, are the people who you had to that didn't have the best value in you or for you, are not the people that funded your projects at the highest level. It's the people who were in your tribe that funded you or believed in you and put something behind you that caused your business to catapult a different way.
Well, I'm gonna say something that might be a little bit controversial, but
I
I think
already
this
know you
battle,
are.
I think this battle that we're fighting is inside of our community before it's external forces. It's a matter of like, all right, well, I remember growing up with my friends. Well, I can't tell you where I got this shirt because you're gonna go take it and you're gonna wear it better than I did. And so now we're in this thing where it's like, all right, well, I don't know that I necessarily want to share information. And I'm trying to do the complete opposite of that right now with all the information and knowledge that we have because we're way stronger together. And I want someone to outshine me. I want to share information and I want you to triple what we're doing. And I'm going to cheer you on along the way. But we've all got to have that abundant growth mindset type of attitude and mindset in order to truly achieve that because it's not about one-upping the next person. It's about learning, gaining knowledge, gaining information, implementing things, and then being able to allow each other to stand on each other's shoulders and continue to grow together, versus just having just your trailblazers or a couple people that did it at a really high level and well, that person did it. But how do we all kind of do this? And I think it's just, I don't know, it's a challenging thing, especially in as a biracial Black man. Sometimes I'm not Black enough, but I'm definitely not white enough to be a white man.
Okay.
So
All right. I apologize. I apologize to you exotic brothers for me always talking about you being exotic.
and we experienced it with what happened with my daughter this recently, and going
Right.
online and explaining and exposing and talking the things. It's still, there's a game that I'm playing now that people looked at that and frowned on that. Oh, Daniel can't be authentic. I can't be who I am because I also have these other businesses and things. And then comments around where are the Black people, he's not Black enough and everything else. And I feel like our community, if we leaned into each other and put our arms around each other and leaned into learning and growing each other and pushing each other on achieving more, a lot of the big connections and relationships we have inside of this company are very much that. Our coalition brothers, this isn't a me versus them. It's like, hey, let's share information and how quickly can we both double, triple our businesses and grow together. But that's just not what we experience necessarily. And I think once we can solve that problem, I think we're going to go a whole hell of a long way together once we can solve that problem in this industry.
Well, and it's not. I don't believe it's the idea of us solving the problem. And that's where the challenge, because we're seeking progress, not perfection. So solving the problem is not where our challenge. Our challenge is with us working together to make the challenge easier for the next person, and us keeping that conversation going about the idea. Like if somebody says, I want to be like you, and I ask them if you tell me, if somebody says, I want to do what you did, and I tell people all the time, why are you setting your sights so low? Because what you're telling me is you want to be where I am, and I don't want you to be where I am because I haven't even tapped into my closest potential. So don't say that. I want you to look beyond me. I want you to look at what Bo is doing. I want you to look at what Daniel's doing. And then you become that other person, because we all, no matter where you set your sights, that is only the ceiling until you get there. Once you get there, now that becomes the floor because you're already there. So how do you get past that point? So for me, that's that conversation we all have to work together to make sure that we help people understand what you're looking at is only a visual of what you could be. It is not where you ultimately should desire to be. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. One of the things that for me, one of the lenses that's been really powerful in that recently, I'm a father to 4 boys, and they say your dad's the only person who's excited and happy for you to surpass them, right? And so my oldest is 14, and he's getting into that teenage, testosterone. I could take you down, Dad. I have all the drip that you don't have, all that stuff, right?
Right.
And it's been really interesting to see. He's freshman. He's excited. He went out. He really wanted to do football, and he went out and he starting quarterback, and it's like super exciting for him. And it's been interesting to think, like, if I could wake up every day and go to family reunion or some big real estate conference or the developers roundtable and look out and feel the same way I feel about seeing my son succeed, about the people around me succeeding, like, wow, that would be really cool. Because my son doesn't want to be me. He wants to be a whole hell of a lot better than me. And I would be pretty disappointed if he ended up being me, because he would have squandered an opportunity, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird, I think you can only experience that though when you have children. And when you have children and you feel the love and the excitement for their growth and their achievements. And to your point, Bo, the moment we can feel that and look out and see more Black men and women in these rooms that are doing things at crazy high levels and cheer them on as they keep setting new records and whatnot. I think that changes. It's going to change a lot, and I think that's what I'm so happy that we started this podcast. And you've been instrumental in helping grow this and helping having these kind of conversations, because these are the things that people don't want to talk about. We had a very candid conversation right now that's going to make some people uncomfortable, unfortunately. And these are things.
Or maybe fortunately.
Absolutely. So I know we went crazy over. Thank you so much for your time, Bo. Any last words of wisdom, words of advice, wealth building, development, being a successful Black man? Our range on this podcast went all over the place. So any last words for our listeners?
I got a couple of thoughts. I'll see if I can touch on some of the various things. I think the first one is, you use your time and talent to produce money in cash flow businesses, which real estate sales, if you're in that business, could be your day job, whatever that is. Do that to the best of your ability, and then think about ways you could take some of that cash, don't consume it all, and put it into something that is more about time and talent and money, where you can put your time and talent behind your own money to grow that is the key to wealth building. And that starts by ensuring that you spend less than you make, and then you can take that difference and go put it to work for you. The second thing is that we're all playing a game. Be conscious of whose game you're playing. Be conscious of the things that affect you. Be conscious that you're not overly defining who you are and your success on somebody else's playbook. And realize, though, that you do sometimes need to play games. That's how life works. But you can put your own spin on it, that you can put your own heart into it, you can put your own DNA in it, and that the vulnerability that comes with being able to express your humanity, express your weakness, allow other people to step in to support you, won't actually hold you back. It may actually be what propels you forward.
That's beautiful. Love it. Emerick, any last words?
Bo summed it up. What Bo said was that take your time and create wealth, because wealthy people trade, less than wealthy people trade time for money, and wealthy people trade money for time. So use your time wisely and invest wisely.
Set it and forget it. Because those homes early on, Bo, will be worth 1.5 now, right?
Should have bought more of them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you again, Bo. I'm looking forward to having you on for future episodes, and see you guys next time.
Follow the Color of Money podcast today and get notified when new episodes are released weekly.
Be part of this transformative listening experience.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.